And welcome back. This, of course, is time for us to get up close and personal right here on K24 this morning. And our next guest, it's interesting because this is just like a TBT for her, bringing her back to where it literally probably almost all began, you know, in the newsroom in this particular station. And then she moved on up and up, moved out of media, got into the corporate space as well. We're talking about the head of global corporate communications, AMREF Health Africa, Elizabeth Ntonjira. You probably knew her as Liz Ntonjira back in the day.
Yes.
Welcome back, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Any nostalgia? You know, the camera, the lights, the microphones.
Our studios back then was not as funky as this is. Right. But yeah, it was a couple of years back. I think I was in my third year or fourth year when I started at K24. It was my first place to be on TV.
Right.
And I started at a travel show. And all thanks to somebody, God rest his soul, But Medley, who'd come in from the States to just set up the station, which was very interesting because I wasn't coming in for an interview or anything.
What were you doing at the station?
Yes, I had been invited for an interview as this one to just speak about young people and writing because I'm really passionate about writing. And immediately after the interview, Bat called me to his office and said, you know, I think you have a great career and future in TV. And I was like, no, I love writing. And he said, yeah, but writing is just a byline. Here you will be branded completely. And so I was in third year doing my law graduate studies. I didn't feel like I had anything to lose. So I took up the challenge.
And it's interesting because after that, it seems like life took just a different path altogether. Did you ever use the law degree at any point in time?
Absolutely, yes. So this is the funniest thing, and I recall every time you take part in a very constructive, in-depth conversation, and everybody would look at me like, oh, how do you know this? And I'm like, I'm a lawyer, I know it. But I really wanted to understand, as the fourth estate, we always hold the public sector to account or people in leadership positions to account for the things they do. And I really wanted to understand how the public sector runs and works. And the first job I had after I left media was at a state agency, just to understand the nitty-gritty details, and it was amazing. And then I went on to do my master's in public policy and management, and I really learned a lot. And
interestingly, for most people who, even had you made that transition from media to private sector, why? Why did you feel like, okay, fine, I've done what I needed to do here? Was that the feeling you got? It's time for me to move on?
To be very candid, I felt like we didn't delve into issues a lot more deeper. Like at some point it reached, we were just reporting on the going-ons that have happened instead of going deeper into the issues. If there is misappropriation of funds or embezzlement, how have we followed up with the story? And obviously, because of a lot of constraints, resource-wise, it's hard for media to really follow up on one key story. There have been some changes that have happened, which is really plausible, but there are yet a lot of things to be done. And I also really wanted to apply my law degree. So just the competition authority when I joined is all about mergers and acquisitions, consumer protection. So it required a lot of, like it was perfect for somebody who's done law or has a legal background. So it was good for me.
And how was that transition, you know, going from being on the screen, being in the limelight, back to, you know, mergers and acquisitions? It's in the boardroom. Very select people know what you're doing.
Jeff, this is the funniest thing. I have never let the fact that it's just a job, like being in media. It's just that you're doing a job where the public gets to know who you are, or they get to often see you. But whenever I was out there, my brothers and sisters and my best friend would always ask me, you're not seeing people staring at you? And I'm like, imagine, no, I was so oblivious to it. So it was, for me, it was part of a job, just like any other. Yeah.
And once you got into that particular space at the Competition Authority, what were you thinking? Where do you go now? What did you want to do? What is the new Liz going to be like moving forward at that point?
So I'm very fortunate that from a very young age, I knew what I wanted to do. And when I set my mind to something, I do it. I like saying, like, life is simple. When you want to do something, just do it. So when an opportunity came by, so in 2015, I got selected amongst the very few Kenyans and Africans to join the Young African Leadership Initiative, now called the Mandela Washington Fellowship. It was former President Barack Obama's leadership initiative. And so I went to Virginia Commonwealth University to learn more about the public sector. And during that time, an opportunity with a USAID-funded project came about. And I felt, oh my goodness, this is like a 360 degree, like the media, the private sector, the public sector, and now going into the international development sector space. So for me, it was perfect. So it wasn't, I was always prepared for that transition in one way or the other.
So in your mind, you always knew this new space is where you're going to be?
Yes, yes. I really wanted to be the people that are making the change off screen.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And let's talk about that for somebody who at one point started by reporting on what's happening in terms of government, the policy or lack thereof, and now a person who's shaping policy, so to speak, in different sectors. Where do you feel we go wrong? Because we talk to policy makers and they say, we're not in short of policy. But yet we look at the situation on the ground and we wonder where is the disconnect? What's happening?
They are very right. We are not short of policies. We have, I think, some of the most amazing policies. Unfortunately, they just sit in somebody's cabinet. We don't. Our biggest problem is implementation and enforcement. And enforcement in the sense that, have you ever had this time when something has been made public and people go haywire and they're like, no, you can't do that, but it's actually law. It's just that it's never been implemented or enforced.
Right.
So I think we have brilliant policies. The worst thing is they just sit in people's cabinets.
Right.
We need to implement them. We need to enforce them. We need to also, for the young people, us guys, need to be better at studying, better at understanding how our countries run, better at knowing how politics affects the cost of bread, for instance.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you talk about we need to be better at studying, you've done quite a bit of studying, Liz. You know, for some people who might not know that, as in you're busy either getting your master's, doing different fellowship programs, what makes you feel that you need to upskill every single time, and what is it that you're looking for?
I think, you know, you can never stop learning. And I think we're all in a state of becoming, as Michelle Obama puts it. If you ask the richest person, I don't know if it's Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett now, if you ask them, everybody is in a constant state of becoming. And the different levels of becoming require a new level of view. And that new level of view requires you to gain some skill set, to gain some understanding or knowledge of particular areas in the space that you're in. So for me, learning never stops. But I think the persistent question I get is, how did you do 2 intense courses at the same time? You were working, got a promotion as I was working.
Wow.
Organized or planned my wedding during that time.
As you are doing all of this?
Yes. And I always say it's by the grace of God. And also it's through prioritizing urgent, important things. And whenever I speak to young people, I always say, as cliche as it sounds, you have to have a mission, vision, and core values that define your short-term, long-term goals. You need to run yourself as a small company, like Liz Ntonjira Limited. Yes, because one of the things I noticed when I was growing up, when I was 15, I had friends who were 10 years older than me. And, you know, the companies they'd want to work for and you know, companies they'd mention, I'd go Google them up. And, you know, that's the first thing you see on a company website, the mission, the vision, the core values. And why don't we have that as ourselves?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's something interesting you mentioned there about family. And for the people who probably follow you or know of you, your schedule can be pretty hectic, even when you're not pursuing the 2 you know, study programs as well. How did you meet Mr. Man, and how do you make time? Because there's the first baby, your husband, and then there are the children as well, and there's this constant schedule of flights and meetings away from home. How does it work?
He's the most amazing human being, to be very honest. His support means everything. I recall when I was just finished, so the master's program in Strathmore takes about 2.5 years. After I completed my second year and I was doing my thesis, I decided to do this other CIPR course for the UK. And, you know, everybody told me, you're nuts, you just got married. And when I asked him, is it okay? He said, of course it is. Go, yeah. He's like my #1 cheerleader. He's amazing. And the kids are fabulous. They always want to, like I make time to go with my kids to work so that they can see where I work, what mom does when she says she goes to work, so that they can just be able to see and grow into that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And for most working moms, they always say, yes, even when I get the support from the family to go out, there's still that tinge of guilt when you're abroad and you're wishing you could be home.
Yeah.
You still feel, how do you deal with that when you're many thousands of miles away?
Oh my God, it's so funny you ask me that, because I got that question in my DMs and somebody said, how did you deal with the guilt? The guilt will always be there, but when you always tell yourself the journey is worth it and what you're doing is worthwhile. So sometimes I would go get my son from the bed, just stare at him. Sundays remain untouched. It's family time. Whatever comes, I have to be, if I've not traveled, Sunday is family time.
Right.
So yeah, in one way or the other, I've been able to cope that way. I will take them out. I will cook. I love cooking.
Right.
So I'll make sure I leave work early, but it also comes with some sacrifice and compromise.
Right.
So for me, a lot of the things that I had to do away with were like the events that happen over the weekends. Because they'll always be there. So let me just spend some time with them now when they're kids than when they're 17 and they don't want you to hang around them.
The event will still be there for you to go to.
The event will still be there.
And there's something you mentioned, because before this whole media thing, you are very passionate about writing.
Yes.
Does Liz still write?
Yes, I still do write. I've always loved writing. I think I've always imagined owning a magazine like Oprah.
Right.
She's like my biggest mentor. I loved writing so much so that I remember in the estate we grew up in, during the holidays, I would form this, like the estate magazine, and charge guys 20 bob to read it. And actually they would buy it, yeah? And I would even draw cartoons just to make the magazine more interesting. I've always loved writing. It's my escape. It's how, and I love writing and reading. Yeah.
What are you reading right now, by the way?
I'm reading, I don't know if I should say the word, but the book is called... Does
it have an F in it? Is it one of those ones?
Yes. The subtle art of not giving an F, and how to get shit done.
Okay. Yeah. Well, clearly those titles say a lot about the frame of mind Liz is in right now. And let's talk about some of the challenges that come with what you've been doing, because when somebody hears your story, it's just like, she went to TV, luckily from an interview, gets a job, moves to station, goes to another company, is now all the way up in the ranks. What are some of the challenges you face? Because on the outside it looks like, wow,
yes,
she got it good, this one.
I like saying from the outside, you look like a swan. So very well put together, but below, the swan is struggling to stay afloat. And I think the biggest challenge with our generation at this moment is we don't take time to appreciate the journey. We don't take time to sit with Liz and find out, how did she get to where she is? Because it's been tough. I've had to sacrifice a lot of things. I recall immediately from my honeymoon, I had exams. I had to transnight, stay studying. I think the biggest thing that has suffered for me is sleep, because I sleep, I think, 3 to 4 hours every day. I hope that changes. But also one of the biggest challenges that I've faced is age discrimination.
Right.
I think because you're always the youngest in the room, in the senior leadership team, wherever I've worked, and people are always like, how did she get here? And it's through hard work, it's through commitment, it's through resilience, it's through patience, and knowing what it is you're going for.
Right.
So you'll always face that. You'll always face challenges. You'll always face haters. But I always say, whatever challenge you face, it should be the fuel to your fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And because you said very many people probably see what you do, want to be where you are, but don't talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some people who you see and you want to be where they are. They're mentors in your space. Who are some of the people who you look up to, who you go and have a chat with, and you're like, okay, fine, this is where we are, and I don't know how to just get my compass back to where it should be?
My husband would be my #1 go-to. He teaches me so much. I have had conversations with Njokindungu. I recall just when I got into media, I'd spoken to Julie Gishuru, Carol Mandi. They've been very significant, amazing women who've played a part in my life. And some are even unbeknownst to them that they are my mentors. You just follow their journeys. You just follow them on LinkedIn and what they're doing. And sometimes having a mentor doesn't mean I sit down with Jeff and Jeff tells me what I need to do. It's just observing people from a distance and, you know, taking up some of the things that resonate with you. I think globally Oprah, I cannot stop saying Oprah is just amazing. I don't know how many people out there have read her story. She came from nothing, literally nothing, to where she is. So whenever I hear about challenges, I think about her life story. And I tell myself, if she did it, I can do it. I also had the very, I was fortunate to start writing when I was very young. So during the writing, I would travel far and wide to interview different people. It could be anybody, yeah? And you just listen to their journey and you get really inspired. And I think that's what made me also start when I was back in TV, Women in Power. Because some of those women have been through hell, but they've risen, yeah? So it's just, they're like diamonds. Yeah. And
you know, it's interesting because even as you talk about that and the challenges that you face being the youngest in the room, there's also the fact that you're a lady.
Yes.
And in the boardrooms, we still have an issue there in terms of the ceiling that's been put there, that glass ceiling. How do you feel it is now? Is it easier to break through and rise up the ranks? How is it in your experience?
No, it's not easy. And I was very happy just a couple of months back, I think beginning of this year, the Africa Leadership Institute did a study and have a report out that says an abundance of young African leaders, but no seat at the table. We have no seat at the table because the people in leadership have chosen not to give seats to young people. And you know, it's because of notions like, you know, these millennials are just microwave, they want things very quickly. But what they forget is also the cost of living now and the cost of living 10, 20 years ago is not the same. So you can't blame somebody for wanting more due to the externalities of the economy and how it looks like. It was very interesting reading that report because it resonated a lot. It says the study was done between 18 to 40 years of age, all of Africa. And I always struggle with the definition of youth. I think we have challenges with when we're talking about youth, because there's no universal definition of youth. A lot of UN bodies, the World Bank, ILO, will define youth as 15 to 24. If you look at Africa, our education, I mean, averagely, when you get called to university or college, you're like 22, 23, or 20. So there is no way, if a study is done for the youth 15 to 24, then it's 98% jobless. So for Africa, the circumstances are completely different, and we're yet to get proper data. But it's clear we're lacking from the seat at the table. I think we have been talking too much and doing very little about the situation. We've seen the appointments that have been done. We have a government that keeps saying, you know, we encourage the youth. But you see, Jeff, you've taught somebody for the past 20 years, if they study hard, become #1, they'll get a good job. When they're 20, you tell them, now create your own job, without equipping them with the appropriate skills. So I'm happy with this new curriculum. It does a bit of that. But we have a very long way to go, a very long way to go.
And if we talk about that, we have a couple of pictures that we'll be having shortly on the screen, because you know they say the pictures, 1,000 words. Look at that young girl.
Oh my goodness, I was so skinny.
What was going on here? What are you doing?
So this was my first gig at K24 as I'll never forget the name of the show, produced by Jeff Mothe, Tali Uenjoy. It was a travel show, non-scripted, just go do your thing. And I think here we were at Wasini Island or something,
Got a chance to travel the country
and enjoy yourself. It was a dope show.
Well, okay, we can move on to the next one right there.
Oh, that was...
Look at that.
Yes. That is
peoples.
my backbone. That's my husband, our daughter Ella, and Dawit, 7 and 11.
Who are they cooking?
They were making pizza on Father's Day. So they took, I was actually out of the country, so they took him to make pizza. I think one of the hotels in the city had some Father's Day thing, so they were there making pizza.
Wow, and you can see he's totally elated with what's going on there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh, there we were on holiday.
Look at that, all girls together. What is going on here?
Yes, this was my Rurashio. Yes, so me and my friends, the three on this side, my sisters and my best friends. It was a really, like you can tell, we're all laughing and smiling. Yeah, it was, these guys are amazing. That is a proper TBT.
Oh my God, Elizabeth.
Oh my God, I'm getting used to Elizabeth. I still can use Liz. Yes, I was in class 8 in St. Paul's Primary School with my friend. I think we were, a guy, I was so small. We were just getting ready for our exams.
Speaking of, even as we look at this picture, because we're just from the KCPE, did you have pressure back then?
Yeah, we had pressure to do well. This was my CIPR graduation in the UK. The picture before that was my Liz Ntonjira network. As you can see, my family is always there supporting. And the network was really founded because of the need. I had a lot of DMs and people reaching out, please mentor me, please mentor me. You are extraordinary, doing amazing things, you're young. This is a radio station in the UK called Colorful Africa. I was doing an interview. And yeah, so I said, you know, it's not just me. There are lots of young people doing extraordinary things. And the platform provides for that. It brings in, we have sessions and workshops once every 2 months.
Look at this. In fact, we'll be talking about the network in full as we finish with the pictures though. What was this, the master's graduation?
Yes, this was, yes, you cannot tell. The makeup was done so well. I had not slept
There's a story here. You just landed from the airport, I think, at 3, 4 in the morning.
3 a.m. I went, you know, before you finish everything, you're in the house at 4 a.m. The makeup artist had already come by 5. Yes, shower, did makeup, went to the graduation square.
So right here, you had sleep for days.
Yes, sleep for days, for days.
Let's talk about the Liz Ntonjira network and what it's about. You said it was from the DMs and you realized there's a need. Yes,
so either it's LinkedIn, all my social platforms, there's always somebody reaching out and saying, I'm stuck here. And some of the questions they would ask were very crucial and critical. And I felt I was not in a position, or I didn't have the expertise to give that advice at that point. And so really, the Liz Ntonjira network was born out of the need of people seeking mentors, seeking direction, seeking guidance. It's a platform where young people come together, they engage, interact, there's coaching and mentoring. We've had 2 successful sessions that have been sold out. So it was really, I was really happy about that because it really assured me there's a need. And some things that might seem obvious to you and me are not obvious to our younger brothers and sisters. So it's really a tailored coaching and mentoring platform. Anybody can join the network, either as a mentor or as a mentee, and to also come for the workshops that happen once every 2 months.
And for some people, they say that it's all great when you come for one of these sessions because if it's Liz I want to get to, I'll hear her story, I'll get to talk with her, but the follow-through is usually the problem because after that day, I still have my challenges here and there. I'd like to talk to Liz or whoever it was. Is there a chance to follow through with those mentors from the network?
Actually, this last one that we had was just 2 weeks ago. And out of that forum, we got to sponsor at least 8 attendees got a chance to attend a business entrepreneurship course. It was fully paid, so that for me is something tangible. And also, when somebody is joining the network, they have to fill in information like what industry are you in? Do you want to join the mentorship program? If so, are you joining as a mentor or as a mentee? So if you join as a mentee or as a mentor, we align people with the same industries.
Right.
Then we organize sessions for all these folks to meet. So
Right.
if it's in ICT, for instance, and we are fortunate to secure Bitange to meet with them and just engage.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And even as we come to a close of this interview, I mean, you've done the media, did that, dusted, you're still writing, you're now head of global corporate communications. Where does Liz see herself going next? What's the plan?
Wow.
What's the next, on the bucket list? What are we ticking next?
I wouldn't say I'll go with the flow because that's dead fish. Go with the flow. But I don't know. But I just see there's a lot more coming. I just want to be more.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And of course, because anytime somebody does something for the youth and gets into that space, I am sure you have been asked, is public office, elective office, something you're thinking about?
No, not at the moment. Maybe in the... I'm not sure, to be very honest, at this point. I don't want to say no or yes, and then when I'm there, somebody goes back to this Jeff Morter Liz interview.
And says, hold up, this is what she said.
Yes,
I have
yes.
a t-shirt with her face on it.
Yes.
Please tell me why.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see what the future holds. Yes.
Okay, fantastic stuff. And for those people who probably want to get in touch with you and want to probably go into the DMs like it all happened before, where do they get you online? Where are you most responsive for that?
Honestly, on the network, which is www.lizntonjiranetwork.com. There's an info at lizntonjiranetwork.com that we are always there constantly responding to various things.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so fantastic stuff. If you want to take this conversation further online, now you know where you can get her and have that serious discussion, because this chick has lots of information that if you wanted just to glean some of that, that's the perfect place for you to get in all of that. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you
It's a
so
good
much
thing
for
we had you
having me.
before your busy travels come back again.
No, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah?
You're lucky. My voice just came back.
Because you told me, you had
Yeah, I
a
had a
flu
nasty cold
yesterday. You have come without your voice.
Yes.
Wow, thank you so much
Thank you
for that. And
Thank
of
you,
course,
Jeff.
as always, get in touch with her. Take that conversation online as well. This is KTT for this morning.